Okay guys, so this is the tutorial for the watercolor color wheel. As you can see, I've already kind of set it up. So I'll just do a quick reminder of how to do that. So in order to set it up for this assignment, what you're going to do is you're gonna do a circle. Now, the easiest way to do this is find something to trace, but if you don't, you can use a compass as well. So I already had that set up. Once you have your circle, you're going to divide it into 12 equal shapes. Now, I'm not going to be measuring the shapes. I ask people normally to just eyeball it, but I will take you through the process of how I do that. So quickly, I would do a line across the center of the circle. Okay, just like this. Then I would do a line across the vertical center of the circle, and I want them to intersect. So it's kind of like, think about cutting a pizza. Okay, so this would be 4. The circle would be in 4. At that point, each quarter is divided into 3. Make sure you have your ruler and you pass through the center of the circle. So it always goes through the intersection point. Okay, and you would do that for all of them until you get 6, or sorry, yeah, you get 6 on one side, 6 on the other, so a total of 12. Now, we're doing a color wheel, and like we learned in our color theory PowerPoint that's already presented, check it out in the content section if you need to. The color wheel is split into the complementaries, the primaries, and then the tertiaries. What we do first is put our primaries in. So these are the colors that cannot be mixed. They're pure. You put them down as what they are. So that would be red, and then you count 1, 2, 3. And the fourth one you put yellow. 1, 2, 3. Fourth one you put blue. 1, 2, 3, and you're back to red. Now, as I was explaining, I'm going to use this little watercolor palette, but you can use liquid watercolors. It all basically is the same thing. You have to remember, if you are using the liquid watercolors, so they're in the tubes, a tiny amount goes a long, long way. So you want to make sure that you're always using a tiny amount, and you always have to add water. Don't ever put straight up pigment on a sheet. It's just going to ruin the entire thing. The cool thing about watercolors too is even once they dry, so these are dry. Oh, that one's not. This one is. You can add water back to them and they come back. So like you can use your watercolors over and over. Now, I've explained some of these, but I will continue. The primaries go on as is. So I have a red, I'm going to paint it directly on. I have a blue directly on, and I have a yellow, they go on. There's no mixing there. The next thing you do is your secondaries, which is orange, green, and purple. And you can tell a secondary because the other primaries make it. So red and yellow make orange. Okay, and here yellow and blue make green. And then the last one we're going to do is blue and red make purple. So in this case, I start with the lighter color, so I'm going to put red. So I do this by putting a little bit of water in, putting it on my palette and mixing it. Again, you never go directly from the paint to the paper. There's always a palette. There's always an in-between. I'm also using a flat brush because I have to be careful. With watercolor, once it's down, it's down. It is a little bit forgiving where I can like ease it up, but essentially if I make a mistake, I live with that mistake. So very, very carefully place your lighter color down. So in my case, this would be red. Watercolor, you paint in either one of 2 techniques. So the technique I'm showing you right now is layered. So I put one color down. Okay, I'm very careful. It's always the lighter color first because it's easier to go darker than it is to get lighter. Once I have that down, I make a wash from the other color. So I know red and blue make purple. So up here, if you look, there's my blue. And I want to make a wash, which means pigment with a good amount of water into it. The more water you put on, the more transparent the paint is. So the idea with layers is you want to see through them. So I have my red layer there. Now I'm going to paint the blue layer on top of it. Okay, so if you're looking, this is giving me a purple. Because the paint is wet, it should bleed and meld together. This is the best way to paint watercolors, and it's the easiest way to control them. Because you can control how much paint goes in, and you can always add layers. Now, there's another way to do this, and I'll show you. So we're going to do the blue, the purple, and the blue together. Now, one theoretically possible technique is I would do it the same thing I did. I would put a red down and then keep putting layers of blue until I get one that's darker than this purple, but lighter than this blue. The other way is this. I'm going to take my red. Okay, clean my brush because you want to avoid mixing. Dry my brush with the rag or whatever I have that I'm going to use that for. There it is. In this case, I'm just using a random piece of cloth. Then you're going to take the blue and you're going to mix them on the palette. So if you look, I'm making this dark purple. Now, the reason that this is not as successful is you need a tester paper. I need a tester. Where is it? You don't want to waste an actual watercolor paper for tester. I'm just going to use this one. Okay, so I just have this little piece, and you have to put it down on the tester and then just keep adding until you find the color that you're looking for. And between each one, you have to clean your brush. Okay. Okay, so that's better. Now, once that's done, I still have to make a wash out of it. So I still have to like add more water. It can't just go down as like a solid color. And then the same technique, I'm going to very carefully place it down. So one thing you might learn too is that once you put watercolor down over pencil, you actually lock the pencil in, so you can't erase it anymore. That's why you have to be pretty careful with your lines. And if you're doing something like this, you want a straight brush with a flat head. It makes it easier to control the lines. All right. So those are the two main ways of doing watercolor. It's the same thing. I'm not going to take you through the entire color wheel, but just to recap, the first way is to put the lighter color down and then keep adding watered down layers of the darker color until you get the tone you want. The second way is to mix on the palette with the pure pigments and just a little bit of water, and then water it down on the palette and place it down that way. For that, you need a tester page. So you need a piece of paper that you can keep testing the paint on with water to make sure that you've got the right color. All right, so that is the quick tutorial for how to paint with traditional watercolors. We will be coming back to do the second part of the tutorial, which is shading with watercolor. But if you need any help, please use a message. Hopefully this clears some things up for you.